Tennessee's at-home learning series for literacy. Today's lesson is for all of our fifth graders out there, although anybody can join. This lesson is the first in this week's series. My name is Ms. Thompson, and I'm a fifth grade teacher at Tennessee Schools. I'm so excited to be your teacher for this lesson. Welcome to my virtual classroom. If you didn't see any of our previous lessons, you can find those lessons on the website, www.tn.gov/education. However, you are able to tune in today's lesson, even if you haven't seen the previous lessons. Today, we're going to be learning about something that has really changed the way we live today. But before we get started, to truly participate fully in our lesson today, you'll need just a couple of things. First of all, you'll need 2 pieces of paper. Go ahead and get 2 pieces of paper. You'll need something to write on, a flat surface to write on. You'll need a highlighter or marker if you have one around. If not, a pencil or a pen will be just fine. I'll give you a few moments to get prepared for our time together. Are you ready? Let's begin. Okay, I promise you, this picture up here is not a trick. It is not a trick question. I'm going to ask you something. What do you think all 3 of these things have in common? This, and this. Trick question. What do all of these things have in common? Correct. They are all things that we use to be pretty common objects around the house. They're all very common objects around the house. Most people have these 3 things around their home. My next question, what else do they have in common? Think a little bit harder. What else do these 3 items have in common? Yes, they all use some form of electricity. Could you imagine life without electricity? I surely could not. What would I do without my favorite coffee maker and my morning news shows? It would be so difficult to live without electricity. I wouldn't have my blow dryer. I wouldn't have my cell phone. Well, if I think about it, I wouldn't have most anything that I use on a regular basis. I think I have just realized that electricity is something that I could not live without. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to take a second and jot some things down. I want you to write down on your piece of paper everything that's plugged into an outlet at your house, everything that is using electricity. Can you go ahead and write that down? I'm going to grab a sheet of paper too, and I'm going to create a list as well. Remember, you're writing a list of every single thing that is plugged into an outlet at your house or that uses electricity. Please do that now. Did you come up with a list? I'll show you my list and what I came up with. 1, I know my coffee pot uses electricity. 2, I know my phone charger uses electricity. All the lamps in my house use electricity, and my blow dryer uses electricity. What kind of list did you come up with? I bet it's really, really, really long. Now, here's what I want you to do. Take a moment. We just went through a list of everything that uses electricity or everything that's plugged up into outlets. Here's what I want you to do right now. I want you to take a second and I want you to think of every single thing that uses batteries. What do you have to use that has batteries in your house? What do you have that uses batteries? I'm going to make a list and I would like you to make a list as well. Remember, everything that uses batteries. What do you have in your house that uses batteries? Please make your list now. I created a list, and I'm sure your list is a lot longer. I know for sure that my remote control uses batteries. I know my flashlight uses batteries, clocks use batteries, and smoke detectors use batteries. You know what else uses a battery? A car. My car battery died a few weeks ago, and it was such a hassle. So think about it. Could you imagine a time before electricity? You couldn't just make something work by plugging it in or inserting batteries. What do you think life was like? Do you think it was really that different, or do you think it was kind of the same? How do you think people lived and worked without all the gizmos and gadgets that we have today? What do you already know about electricity? Do you know anything already? And do you know anything about the people that discovered how electricity works? Wow, what an important discovery they had, electricity. Could you imagine discovering that? Let's dig into our reading today to find out what all this talk about electricity really means. Now, as I read, I want you to listen closely to the information that makes you realize how different our lives are from those that lived before electricity. You should have a text at home to follow along. If it's dark and you want to read a book, you switch on a light. If you want to listen to music, what do? You turn on the radio. If you want to talk to a friend, what do? You pick up the phone and you call that friend. If you were living before the late 1800s, however, you couldn't do any of those things. The light bulb, the radio, and the telephone, light bulb, radio, and telephone, have changed everything, and they had not been invented yet. These inventions and many more weren't possible until scientists understood how to use electricity. Even though you might not yet know about the history of electricity, why do you think scientists wanted to understand it? Why do you think scientists wanted to understand electricity? Well, I bet they're curious people, just like we are. I bet they had a lot of questions and they just wanted to know more. I'm curious to know what the text means by scientists understood how to use electricity. I'm wondering about that word, use. What does it mean to understand how to use electricity? Don't we all use it every day? What do you think? Maybe it means that scientists discovered how to put electricity to work, have it power things like we have on our lists, radios, phones, and lamps. I'm thinking that I want to know more, so let's keep reading. In simple terms, electricity is a form of energy that exists in nature. I'm going to say that again. In simplest term, electricity is a form of energy that exists in nature. Although electricity is all around us, people didn't know how to use it as a source of energy until the late 1800s. That was so long ago. Okay, I think I have some good information about electricity. We just read that electricity is what? That's right, a form of energy, but I think I'm going to need a way to start organizing all my information from my reading. So why don't you go ahead and grab a clean piece of paper, and we're going to start a graphic organizer together. And what we're going to put in the middle is we're going to put the word electricity, because remember, I want to organize all of my thoughts really, really nice and neat. So go ahead and on your piece of paper, write down the word electricity. Now, here's what I would like for you to do. We just talked about the fact that it is a form of energy. So what I want to do is I want to somehow put that around the word electricity, that it is a form of energy. And remember, we're creating a graphic organizer, so we're going to kind of just bubble this off to the side. We realized it is a form of energy. Remember, all of this, we're talking everything about electricity. We realized that it is a form of energy. So as we keep reading, we're going to keep our notes organized this way. Did you realize that electricity is in nature? Did you realize and know that it's all around us? I really didn't. It's not like we see electricity. That makes me want to add it to our chart. It really makes me want to add that it's all around us and that it exists in nature. So I'm going to add it's all around us and it exists in nature. Please do that with me. All right, I've added that it's all around us and that it exists in nature. So before I go on, I think it's pretty cool. We're talking about a time period that's close to 150 years ago. That is a long time. Or as the text tells us, in the late 1800s. I'm trying to think of what scientists' labs and equipment even looked like back then. Could you imagine? Isn't it interesting that scientists back then discovered that you could use electricity as a source of energy or way to power things? That's pretty cool information. I really think I need to add that to my organizer too. I'm going to add that scientists used it to learn about electricity in the late 1800s. Remember, scientists learned to use it in the late 1800s. Wow, I've got so much information on my graphic organizer. So I know my main topic here is what? It's electricity. And so far I've learned that electricity was we learned to use it in the late 1800s. It's all around us. It's a form of energy and it exists in nature. Remember, my graphic organizer keeps me organized while I read. All right, this has me intrigued. Let's keep reading. You should have a text at home. In the 1800s, scientists began to learn more about electricity. They learned that electricity is related to tiny particles called electrons. They discovered that in order to use electricity, electrons must flow through a closed loop. That closed loop is called a circuit. They also discovered that magnetism is related to electricity and can be used to make electrons flow through the circuit. These early discoveries paved the way for the beginning of the electrical age. I'm going to make a note over here, and I'm going to put electrical age, just to keep my thoughts organized. Okay, this section is full of vocabulary words that help us understand more about what electricity is made up of and how it really works. This is so cool. Let's see if we can pull it apart and make more sense of it. The text says, if you can see where the text says, it says electricity is related to tiny particles called electrons. Yep, you're thinking what I'm thinking. We need to add that to our graphic organizer. Tiny particles called electrons. Go ahead and add it now. Tiny particles called electrons. Now, I will give you just a few seconds to get caught up. Then, we also just read that in order for us to use, there's that word use again, electricity, these electrons have to flow through a closed loop called a circuit. I think of a closed loop looking something like a circle. Can you see all these tiny particles traveling together in a circle? That's pretty cool. I think we should draw it. Let's draw a small circle beside or below the word electrons. So you're drawing a small circle beside or below the word electrons. Now, we also know that tiny particles travel in a circle. So let's add small dots around our circle, and that's going to represent those particles. Do that now. If you can see, I'll zoom in for you. I've added tiny circles traveling along the circle. Those are the tiny particles in our electron. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to label this with the word circuit. You can do the same. I'm going to label this with the word circuit, and you can do the same. Once you get that done, we'll continue. I hope you're following along. All right. I remember something about the word magnetism in our reading. The word magnetism must be connected to the word magnet. What does a magnet do? Who knows what a magnet does? That's right. It uses an invisible force to pull or push energy. So I'm heading back into the text. We read that magnetism can be used to make the electrons move through a circuit. So what do you think that might look like? Magnetism uses those electrons to move through the circuit. I'm thinking that what we need to do is we need to add arrows to represent magnetism's forcing electrons to move through the circuit. How about we label them with the word magnetism once and then use the letter M to represent magnetism for the other arrows. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to draw arrows that represent the magnetism around my electron. And I'm doing those in green, if you can see. And I'm going to label that with an M. And what was the M standing for? Magnetism. I had to focus in a little bit. My arrows are in green around my electron. You're doing a great job at home. I hope your graphic organizer looks just like mine. I know you have a great model of a circuit full of tiny traveling electrons all pushing ahead by magnetism. Hold it up and show it off to everybody in your house because I know it looks awesome. And did anyone catch what this period was called, this specific time period? I know I wrote it up here somewhere. Oh yes, the electrical age. That might not mean so much to us right now, but spoiler alert, I think it's going to help us in the future. How about we add that to our organizer as well? I'm thinking somewhere near the words late 1800s. Let's do that. We already did it though. Remember, electrical age, the late 1800s. Wow, I can just see scientists and inventors during this time. They must have all been racing to see what they could do next. This is such cool stuff. I can't even wait. I'm ready to learn more. Who's ready? Inventors began to apply some of the new discoveries to their own work. Alexander Graham Bell, who remembers that name? Alexander Graham Bell. He knew that scientists had succeeded in sending messages electronically over wires as a series of dots and dashes. But the sound of the human voice had not been transmitted yet or sent using electricity. Bell was determined to be the first one to do it, and he was. He invented the telephone, connecting people as never before. Could you imagine not having phones today? Again, we're thinking alike. Let's add that to our graphic organizer. I'm going to add Alexander Graham Bell to our graphic organizer and the word telephone because he is part of the electrical age, which is all part of the word electricity. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to add Alexander Graham Bell and I'm going to put telephone. Now, his name is kind of long, so I'm just going to write AG for short. Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. Now, remember, keeping this all with my graphic organizer regarding electricity. Let's think of someone else. Thomas Edison, who is created with the invention of many electrical devices, is probably best known for the what? That's right, the light bulb. It's hard to imagine the world without the electric light. Yes, let's add Edison to our graphic organizer too. I think I'm going to write just below Alexander Graham Bell and add Thomas Edison and the word light bulb. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to add Thomas Edison. I'm just going to put T for short. And I'm going to put the word light bulb. Alexander Graham Bell, telephone. Thomas Edison, light bulb. You should have those on your graphic organizer as well. Now, around the turn of the 20th century, Guglielmo Marconi figured out how to send electric signals without using wires. This remarkable discovery paved the way for the invention of the radio. Again, I'm thinking that this inventor goes right below Edison on our graphic organizer, but I'm just going to write his last name because his first name is really, really difficult to pronounce. So again, I'm going to bring it down here and I'm going to write Marconi, and he did the radio. Now, if you'll notice, I've got three men here. I've got three men here who all used electricity to help create something. So I kind of want to organize those together a little bit just to keep my thinking straight. But the text didn't tell us that Marconi invented the radio. He just discovered, the text told us that he just discovered a way that paved the way for the invention of radio. So I'm thinking we can't add the word radio under Marconi, so we could cross that out and put he paved the way. So what could we say was his discovery if he didn't invent the radio? Let me read that again. Marconi figured out how to send electric signals without using wires. Well, it sounds like he was able to send electric signals, but without wires. We use a word today that means without wires. Do we know what that word is? Yes, it's wireless. We say that word all the time, like wireless speaker, wireless device, wireless connection. We even hear it on TV commercials. Let's think about what the text told us. That Marconi's discovery led to the invention of the radio. What do radios produce? Let's think about that for a second. What do radios produce? That's right, they produce sound. So I think we have it. I think that we discovered that Marconi found a way to transmit sound. So I'm going to put wireless sound under Marconi. I need to make my circle a little bit bigger. You can make your circle a little bit bigger at home. Wow, I think we just learned about three inventors that took electricity to a whole new level. But before I move on, I think it would help me stay organized if I label this group of important inventors on my organizer. And I'm going to make a little header for the group called, yep, you guessed it, famous inventors. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write famous inventors. And I know that that group falls under that category. I label this group of important inventors on my organizer so it keeps me a little bit more organized. I'm wondering though, were there other inventors during this time period, the electrical age, that were working to see what they could do with electricity? I'm thinking I might need to do a little research on my own after today's lesson. What about you? In the meantime, let's read some more to see what else we can learn. Much has changed since the invention of these devices. Scientists and inventors have built upon the early ideas and created thousands of devices that define modern life. No kidding, so much has changed since these early inventions. Just think about how many light bulbs are in your own town or city. Think about how many light bulbs are in your house, hundreds upon hundreds. Remember back in the beginning of our lesson, and I asked you to think about everything in your house that uses electricity or batteries? We had some pretty long lists, more than just one single light bulb. So I'm curious to know what you think it means when the text says, scientists and inventors have built upon early ideas. What do you think that means? Scientists and inventors built upon early ideas. Use your scratch paper and jot down what you think it means to build upon the ideas of others. What does it mean to build upon the ideas of others? I'm going to give you a few seconds to do that. What does it mean to build upon the idea of others? I think building upon the ideas of others is a really, really good concept, and I believe it impacts everything around us. And I'd like to share with you what I wrote down. I believe building upon means that we can use the ideas of others that come before us as a start to where they started, and that we can use their knowledge and make it even better. Think about the phones we have today. Did they start out the way they look and work today? They sure didn't. No way. Scientists and inventors continue to build upon the knowledge of others to keep rolling on and on and on, adding improvements along the way. So if one person had an idea, another person just came on and added to that next person. Now we have phones that can fit into our pockets, take really good pictures, and connect us with people using video. I really do think this is so important, which means we need to add it to our graphic organizer. Somewhere under our list of famous inventors, let's write the phrase, build upon each other's ideas. So I'm going to go back over here, and I would like to add, build upon others' ideas. Remember, all three of these gentlemen, Marconi, Edison, and Bell, they all built upon each other's ideas, making their inventions even better. I'm wondering if these three famous men invented anything else. If so, did everything they invent use electricity? Let's get back to our text. You should have it at home. Although the original light bulb, the first wireless sound transmission, and the early telephone seem simple and kind of old-fashioned, they have dramatically changed our world. Just as early electrical pioneers built upon discoveries that came before them, the creator of today's cutting-edge electronic technology builds upon the discoveries of Bell, Edison, and Marconi. When I think of the first wireless sound transmission and the early telephone, they do seem so simple and old-fashioned. Why do you think so? It's true, because what we have today is so much more advanced. Those things seem so old to us. I mean, it was close to 150 years ago. Now it's time for your guided practice. We had a lot of really, really cool information today to get us going. So let's put our brains together to see if you're ready for your independent practice. Let's think about it and look back at our organizer. You should have your organizer. I'll zoom out so you can see mine. It's pretty big. You should have your graphic organizer. Let's think back and look back at it for some guidance. We learned that no one even discovered that we could use electricity until the late 1800s. And even then, it was still what we consider pretty old-fashioned by today's standards. We put that in our graphic organizer. I also noticed that inventors build upon one another's ideas. to make even new and better inventions. Of course, inventors were working hard to do what they thought would make people's lives better. Just think, people at this time in history were used to living and working by the light of candles or gas lamps, sending letters or traveling up to catch up with family and friends. Electricity completely changed their lives. Now, I want you to think about this. How do you think people at this time in history felt as their lives started to change due to the inventions and advancements in the use of electricity? Did they like the changes or not? Do you think the changes scared them? Did it make their lives easier? I'm going to ask that one more time. And I want you to write your thoughts on your scratch piece of paper. How do you think people at this time in history felt as their lives started to change because of these inventions and advancements in the use of electricity? Did they like the changes or not? Do you think it scared them? Did it make their lives easier? Write that down on your piece of paper right now. Now, I would like for us to head back to our graphic organizer just one more time to make sure that we have everything we need to do our independent practice. I know that electricity was my main topic today, or my main idea. I know that I learned it's all around us. It exists in nature. It's a form of energy. It's made up of tiny particles called electrons, and then I modeled what an electron looks like. It was learned to be used in the late 1800s, which was called the electrical age. I also read about 3 famous inventors. Marconi, who used wireless sound, which eventually led to the invention of the radio. Thomas Edison, who invented the light bulb. And Alexander Graham Bell, who invented the telephone. I also made a note down here that they built upon other ideas. So each one of these men continued to take the ideas of others and build on it to make it better. I see that my word electricity has a lot of connections. I have information that tells me that electricity is found in nature and it's all around us, even though we really can't see it, right? I see that it's made up of tiny electrons and that the electrons are part of this great thing called a circuit. I see that the time period is the late 1800s and it's called the electrical age. Of course, we have the names of 3 famous inventors that found ways to use electricity to make our lives better. These inventors built upon and improved one another's ideas as time went on. But if I'm honest, I kind of like my drawing the best. I think it's pretty good. After our lesson is over for today, I want you to take some time to complete a really fun activity. I want you to take some time to imagine that you're living in the early 1900s and you have an interview to work for an inventor. Bell, Edison, and Marconi have already begun their important work with electricity, and you have been following their early discoveries, especially what makes up a basic electrical unit. To prepare for your interview, you create a speech to share with your potential boss in hopes that it convinces him that you know your stuff when it comes to electricity, particularly how it has and can continue to change people's lives. Of course, you'll have to mention Bell, Edison, or Marconi to impress him. But don't forget, you don't want to leave without the chance to wow him with your knowledge of the electrical circuit. Use a clean piece of paper to write your amazing and convincing speech. Reference your graphic organizer for details to support your writing. I'm going to repeat those directions again. Use a clean piece of paper to write your amazing and convincing speech. Reference your graphic organizer for details to support your writing. I know you're going to do a fantastic job. Who knows? Maybe you'll get hired. I really enjoyed learning with you today. And I'm so glad that we know more about the history of electricity and how much it has changed our lives. Thank you for inviting me into your home. I look forward to seeing you again on Tennessee's At Home Learning Series. See ya.